Well, welcome back to the Advent Conspiracy. This is week 2 for us here at Messiah. It isn't a sermon series. I don't want us to think of it as a sermon series or a message series as much as a movement. A movement that seeks to turn Christmas upside down once again and get back to the heart of what Christmas is all about. It's a movement about being participants in the Christmas story, about being participants in the story of the birth of Jesus Christ, rather than just spectators of the story of Jesus Christ. We introduced this conspiracy last week by talking about the 4 principles that make up the Advent conspiracy: to worship fully, to spend less on one extra gift this year, so that you can use that to give more of yourself, your time, back to your family, and so that you can then take that money and put it towards a cause or a charity, so that we can live out the principle of loving all people, which is part of our purpose statement here at Messiah. Last week we talked about entering into these weeks before Christmas, that it has to start with worshiping God fully. We talked a little bit about how worship means anything that brings worth to God. Right? Worship, if you break it down. And worship is anything that brings worth to God. And the challenge for us was to take that principle and to live worshipful lives. Because based on that definition, worship isn't something that just happens in these walls for 1 hour on a Sunday morning, but it basically begins with our hearts. And so how can we live worshipful lives? Because in order to enter into the rest of the conspiracy over the next couple of weeks, we realize that we have to bring all to God, right? Our entire life have to be lived to bring God worth. And it will help with the rest of the season if we go in with open hearts. All right, to worship fully is that first principle that we talk about here at Messiah as part of our purpose statement, about loving God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. All right, and if we do that, in order to love others as ourselves, loving people, we have to begin. We have to begin with loving God with everything that we have. Because in order to love other people, our hearts have to already be open. And in order for our hearts to be open, we have to live our lives and live lives of worship. So today I want to get to the second principle of the Advent conspiracy, and that is to spend less. I had somebody come out of first service that says, "My kids are not happy with today's message, Pastor. I just have to tell you." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And they said, "Don't be, because guess what? I am happy with today's sermon, Pastor." So I want to begin with a question as we talk about spending less, and that is, what really does make a good gift in the first place? Right? What makes a good gift? Is it the amount of money that we spend on the gift? Is a good gift come only from a certain store? Or does a good gift only have a certain brand name on it? Is a good gift one that is completely practical? What makes up a good gift? Or is a good gift one where there is thought put into it about who was receiving the gift, about what it is that they may like, or that will communicate to the person who's receiving it that thought and love was actually put in to the gift that was being given? I want you to take a look at this clip from an old episode of Friends, in which Joey and Chandler give gifts to their friends purchased at the last minute from all places, a gas station.
I guess that just leaves the gifts from Joey and Chandler.
Rach, these are for you.
Wiper blades. I don't even have a car.
No, but with this new car smell, you'll think you do.
Okay, Phoebes, your turn.
Oh! Toilet seat covers! Is that what you were doing while I was getting gas?
Uh-huh.
You guys.
Hey, and for Ross, Mr. Sweet Tooth.
You got me a cola drink?
And a lemon lime.
Well, this is too much. I feel like I should get you another sweater.
Now, none of us have done that around here, right? No, none of us have done anything close to that. Now, I know that there are people who are very thoughtful and give meaningful gifts and are sacrificial in their giving. And I am not saying we don't give meaningful gifts. All right, keep doing that. Keep buying meaningful gifts. But for many people, I believe, Christmas has become a time where we simply buy and receive gifts, and we don't even think about what it is that we're truly giving them. And there's no thought behind to whom we are giving them to and why we are actually giving what we are giving. The principle of the Advent conspiracy challenges us to overcome this tendency to give without thought and to give without thought of the person. And to truly be able to do this, we have to be firmly established and growing in our relationship with God. That's why worship fully was the first principle and had to be the first principle, right? And so today I want to challenge us to give one less gift this year and to use that money to make a difference in someone's life. Now, we've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks, all right? We've got some suggestions for you this year. You can buy a gift through our Christmas gift giving event that we do each year as we adopt those families over at Lambkin Elementary and help them give Christmas to their kids. And you can continue to do that this morning. You can also use it this year to purchase items and to stuff in shoe boxes through our Shoe Boxes for Success that you have in your worship bulletin. Now, we've got a couple of shoe boxes up here. We've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. The shoe boxes are going to be filled with necessary items that will be given to orphans in Ethiopia. The shoe boxes will have stuff in them like school supplies, soap and underwear, and other necessary items that these orphans actually need. And a lot of the things that go into them help them with their school stuff, right? There are things that will help them to prepare and to be ready for school. That's why we're calling them Shoe Boxes for Success. There are 57 million children in the world who do not have access to a quality education. 57 million. And many of them are orphans who do not have the means to be in school as they spend most of their times trying to get food or work to get money to purchase food and some lousy flip-flops for the bottom of their feet. Right? Now, while that may seem like a big number, I am hopeful. And what brings me hope is that education is something that we can all solve right here, right now. Right? We are not looking for the cure for some disease. We are not looking for or digging for a mineral that may or may not exist. Education can be solved by all of us, right here, right now. I'm reminded of these two that I met on one of my first trips to Ethiopia. I was walking around a market there in Ethiopia, and these two came up to me, and they went like this, and the only word they could speak in English was pen. And I said, pen? What do you mean pen? And they said, pen. They were asking me for a pen, right? A pen. Nothing else, not money, not food, not clothing, but they were asking me for a pen. And I thought that was really bizarre because these kids could have come up and asked the American for anything that they possibly could have wanted in the world. And the thing that they were asking me for was a pen. And I asked through Johannes, I said, why are they asking me for pens? And so he asked them, why are you asking for a pen? And their answer was simple, so we can do our schoolwork. So we can do our schoolwork. Right? Now for us, pens are simply writing utensils. Most of us probably pick them up and we don't even realize it. I don't know about you, but if I see a little thing of pens at the doctor's office or whatever, usually I'm walking out with one and I don't even realize I am. Right? But for them, it is a key. For them, it is a key that opens up a door to creativity, a door to curiosity, and a door to possibilities. And while many of us may have extravagant items on our Christmas list, Lord knows I've seen my daughter's Christmas list, right? There are some that simply want a pen. And that's it. Part of what goes in the shoe boxes are pens. Right? I used to think, and I grew up, and I used to think that without the ability to make a large donation like the Bill Gateses of the world or the Steve Jobses of the world, that there was no way that I could actually make a difference in someone's life. But that belief was shattered the day that these two kids asked me for a writing utensil. Right? And every time I returned to Ethiopia, everybody always asked me, what can I bring? What can I bring? And guess what I tell them? Pens. Right? Because once I realized that, I said, you know what? I can do this. They want pens. I can bring pens. Right? And so I hope this year that you substitute one extra gift this season by giving the gift of hope. And education is hope for these students. Right? Education is their way out of poverty. Right? Nelson Mandela once said, the greatest weapon we have to change the world is education. And I truly believe that with all of my heart. The great Malala once said that you can kill a terrorist with a gun, but you can kill terrorism with education. By taking some time together as a family, now that you don't have to go buy that one gift, I hope that you spend that extra time together as a family, stuffing a shoebox full of necessary supplies for the orphans so that they can go to school. Because these shoeboxes can bring hope to these children. I think it's really simple. Spending more and giving less, or spending less and giving more. I think that's what it comes down to. And that's the question for all of us today as we enter into this part of the conspiracy. Because here's the deal about consumerism. I believe at the very heart of consumerism is dissatisfaction and discontent. That's at the heart of consumerism. Because we are constantly searching for that one thing that is going to satisfy us. And when that one thing does not satisfy us, we simply go on to the next, thinking that it will. And yet each time we trust the promises of our possessions, all we simply do is put up more barriers between our true selves and God's plain command to love Him above everything else. It's not that we necessarily want more. It's that what we want is something we cannot buy. And I believe that one thing that we cannot buy is the one thing that only God can give to all of us. So there are three things that I want you to remember on this day that we talk about spending less. Number one, when you give gifts that meet a need. Paul states in Philippians chapter 4, verse 16, "For even when I was in Thessalonica, you sent me aid again and again when I was in need." You can sense the gratitude in Paul's words, can't you? The gifts they brought to Paul were things that he needed at that particular time. Now, I know these aren't great crowd pleasers, okay? I remember opening those packages of socks and underwear, right? I know these aren't going to be home runs here, right? But remember the pen. Remember the pen. I'll always say, it's the promise of a pen, right? Remember the promise of a pen, right? Because the gifts that Paul was receiving were tailor-made to his situation and what he needed. There's a saying, you've been blessed, so be a blessing to others. I think that's what this principle is about. Number two, let the gifts you give be memorable. I would be less than honest with you if I did not say that I want the gifts I give to not only meet a need, but to also be memorable to the people that I'm giving them to. I suspect that every one of us can think back to probably just a handful of gifts that we have received that have really impacted us, where there was thought put into them, right? Where people knew who we were and what we actually needed, right? And I suspect many of those were not high-priced items either. One of the best gifts that I ever got from London was 4 years ago, and it still hangs in my home office today. And it was an elephant that she made because she knew I always went to Africa, right? And she made this elephant out of paper mache stuff, and it sits there on my wall. Didn't cost her anything, right? But there was love and there was thought put into it. There was something personal behind it, right? There was an emotional investment, and that's what we're talking about today. Number three, let the gifts you give be meaningful. Paul knew that the gifts given to him were given from a place of love, not out of a place of obligation. When we give, no matter where we give to or to whom we give to, whether it's giving to our church or whether it's giving to a person, we should always give out of a place of love, not out of a place of obligation. Right? Jesus didn't come to set us free from stuff. Jesus simply came to set us free. If stuff were the whole problem, we could just have nothing and we would magically all be happy. But our attachment to stuff is the symptom of all of our problems. All we're trying to do is fill a deeper need. But it doesn't matter how, I once heard, doesn't matter how much stuff you cram down a bottomless hole, the hole will still be there. It's never going to fill, right? So this Advent, I'm asking you, don't just spend less money, right? Spend less time on distractions. Spend less energy holding grudges. Spend less thought trying to figure out what kind of person the kind of person you want to be with wants to be with. Spend less money, sure, that's the obvious one. But spend less on the things that distract you from fully worshiping God this Advent season. I mean, is there any week in the year when that wouldn't be good advice? Use this opportunity to shock your brain into thinking about your life from a higher level. Because guess what? Christmas is coming. And when we hear Christmas is coming, we think, yay, cookies, presents, songs. But in the original context, that's not what it meant. There's an old passage from the Old Testament book of Malachi. Malachi was one of the prophets. And it says, I will send my messenger who will prepare the way for me. In other words, Christmas is coming. That's what this passage is screaming. And it says, suddenly the Lord you are seeking will then come to his temple. But who can endure the day of his coming? Who can stand when he appears? For he will be like a refiner's fire. You know what refiner's fire is meant to do? It's meant to rid of impurities. It's meant to bring the pure silver to the top, right? What this is meaning is that, yes, Christmas is coming, but it means that the world is about to heat up, right? Now, there's nothing sweet or gentle about refiner's fire. It's about a reduction of waste. It's about an elimination of impurities. It's about letting go of whatever is holding you down so that you can rise up, so that you can worship God fully, so that you can fully be present in the story of Christmas this year, rather than merely being a participant, a spectator of the story. John the Baptist came onto the scene. And what was his message? What was John the Baptist's message? Anybody remember? He says, the king is coming. Everyone, look busy. Just kidding. It's not what he said. The king is coming. Get ready. Right? And in order for us to get ready, we have to eliminate the things that stand in our way. We have to eliminate the impurities. We have to eliminate the barriers. We have to let go of the burdens. We have to forgive old debts. We have to eliminate anything that stands in the way of Jesus so that we can fully immerse ourselves in the story of Christmas. That's the conspiracy. So, since I know all of you always do exactly what your pastor tells you to do. Why are you laughing? I'm going to leave you with some final instructions because I know you do what your pastor tells you to do. Here it is. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about it at home. Don't mention it to your friends. And for heaven's sake, don't invite anyone to Christmas Eve candlelight worship. Because who knows what may happen when God's people begin to put these principles into practice in their lives together. Something just might change. And this is the church, and we can't have that, can we? In Jesus' name, amen.